The snow fell relentlessly, freezing everything. A homeless girl and her stray dog fought to survive when Scout's desperate bark shattered the icy silence. He led them to an unbelievable scene. Two FBI agents, bound and poisoned, on the brink of death. What she and her dog did next not only defied logic, but shocked the entire police force, revealing a dark secret hidden beneath the white blanket. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs, an erratic drum in her chest. The sight of the agents, pale and motionless, was seared into her mind, an image the cold seemed to freeze even further. Scout, a small glass vial clutched between his teeth, barked once, a sharp sound that cut through the wind's howl. He tugged at her pant leg, his brown eyes pleading for action, an urgency Anna understood without words. It was an instinct, an unwavering certainty that emanated from the small dog. There was no time to lose. With trembling hands, Anna took the vial, carefully wrapping it in a torn piece of her scarf, the only thing that could keep it safe. "Let's go, Scout," she whispered, her voice hoarse from cold and fear, and the two turned to face the blizzard again. The journey was a battle against the elements. Snow whipped at Anna's face, each step a struggle in the knee-deep snow. The icy wind seemed to rip the air from her lungs, but she didn't stop. Scout, with his small, agile body, forged ahead, his infallible nose guiding them through the darkness and the blinding whiteness. Miles stretched on, each feeling like an eternity. The only sound was the crunch of snow beneath their feet and Anna's heavy panting, interspersed with Scout's encouraging barks. Hunger and exhaustion were a heavy burden, but the image of the dying agents and the urgency in Scout's eyes propelled her forward. Finally, a faint light pierced the blizzard, the police station. Relief flooded Anna, but exhaustion threatened to bring her down. She pushed open the heavy door, and the warm breath of the interior enveloped her, a shocking contrast to the icy hell outside. The smell of strong coffee and old paper filled the air. The duty sergeant, a burly man with a grizzled mustache, looked up from his newspaper, his gaze meeting Anna's. He frowned at the sight of her snow-covered figure, tangled hair, and the wet, panting dog beside her. "Can I help you, kid?" His voice was deep but not hostile, just tired. Anna took a deep breath, trying to control the trembling in her body. I found them, two men. They're poisoned and tied up in the snow." The words tumbled out, almost inaudible. Scout let out a small whimper, as if to confirm the story. The sergeant blinked, disbelief evident on his face. "Poisoned? Tied up. Kid, do you have any idea what you're saying, and where did you find this?" He looked at Scout with a mix of irritation and curiosity. Anna held out her hand, revealing the small vial wrapped in the scarf. The fluorescent light of the station reflected off the glass. "This was there, near them. It's poison." The sergeant took the vial with hesitation, his eyes widening as he read the partial label. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the static of a police radio somewhere. Disbelief gave way to a chilling shock. He stood abruptly, knocking his chair over with a crash. "My God," he murmured, his face pale. This is serious." In seconds, the previously calm station transformed into a whirlwind of activity. Voices rose, phones rang, and the muffled siren of a newly arrived patrol car sounded outside. Two young, alert officers were called. The sergeant pointed to Anna. "She found them. She'll have to take us back to the scene." Anna, despite extreme exhaustion, nodded. Scout, as always, was by her side, his eyes fixed on her, ready for the next step. They got into the patrol car, the car's heating an unexpected luxury. The radio crackled with codes and instructions, and Anna heard fragments of conversation about federal agents and top priority. The return trip was faster, the patrol car's lights cutting through the night's darkness and the snow's whiteness. Upon arrival, the scene was already cordoned off. Other patrol cars and an ambulance joined them. their lights flashing in a frantic rhythm. Paramedics worked quickly, untying the agents and administering antidotes and oxygen. The air was charged with urgency. A serious-looking detective in a heavy coat and felt hat approached Anna. "Kid, you did something incredible here. These men, they're FBI. You saved their lives." He looked at the vial, which was now in an evidence bag, and then at Scout, who was sniffing the snow with curiosity. "And your friend here, he's a hero." The detective knelt, his eyes fixed on Anna. Who would do such a thing, and why? What were they investigating? The question echoed in the frigid air, the beginning of a mystery that seemed to deepen with each new gust of wind, revealing the tip of an iceberg of secrets that threatened to destabilize much more than just the peace of that snowy night. The conspiracy, previously hidden, began to show its claws, and Anna, the homeless girl, was right in the center of it. Detective Miller's gaze lingered on Anna, then swept across the landscape, now a hive of official activity. The blue and red lights of patrol cars and ambulances painted the pristine snow with an urgent, pulsing glow. Ambulances and patrol cars roared, their engines warming the frigid air, and the police radio crackled with coded messages that Anna didn't understand. Paramedics had already stabilized the agents, who were carefully placed on stretchers and taken to the ambulances, the doors closing with a dull thud. "Detective Miller," the man said, extending his hand to Anna. "I'm Detective Miller, and you, kid, just gave us the first piece of a very dangerous puzzle." Anna shook his hand, hers small and cold in the detective's large, warm palm. She felt a shiver run through her body, not just from the cold, but from the gravity of his words. I just wanted to help," she murmured, her eyes fixed on the departing ambulance. Scout, sensing the tension, snuggled against Anna's leg, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Miller nodded, his eyes serious. "And you did more than just help. You saved 2 lives, Anna. Important lives, and you brought us crucial evidence." He gestured to the transparent evidence bag, where the small vial of poison lay. Now, under the light of a forensic flashlight, a technician in white gloves was already collecting samples from the surrounding snow, the flash of his camera popping in the frigid air. "This poison," Miller began, his voice low, almost a whisper against the wind's howl, "isn't something you find on any street corner. It's potent, and the way it was used suggests a professional. Someone who wanted them to die, but perhaps not immediately, so the cold would do the rest of the work." Anna shivered. The idea of someone planning such a cruel death tightened her stomach. She looked at Scout, who was sniffing the air, his tail wagging gently. He seemed restless, as if there was something more to be discovered, a scent that escaped human perception. "You said Scout dug it up?" Miller asked, observing the dog with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. "Yes," Anna replied. "He started growling and sniffing. I hadn't seen anything until he showed me." The detective leaned down, his eyes fixed on Scout's. "A very special dog, yours. Maybe he has a nose for more than just food." A faint smile appeared on his lips, but quickly vanished. "We need you and Scout to help us understand what happened. Would you mind coming with us to the station to give a more detailed statement?" Anna hesitated. The police station, for her, had always been a place of fear, of being ignored or reprimanded. But now, the situation was different. She had done something good. She looked at Scout, who watched her with his intelligent eyes. He seemed ready for anything. "Yes," she said, her voice firmer now. "We will." The crime scene was now a hive of activity. FBI agents in their dark coats and grave expressions began to arrive, their voices mingling with the sounds of vehicles and equipment. One of them, a tall woman with short hair and thin glasses, appeared to be the leader. She observed the scene with a calculating intensity, her eyes sweeping over every detail, as if she could unravel the snow's secrets. "Detective Miller, what do we have?" the woman asked, her voice sharp as the icy wind. "Special Agent Ramirez," Miller replied. "Two of your men were poisoned and tied up here, rescued by this young woman and her dog. They found the poison vial." He pointed to Anna and Scout. Ramirez turned to Anna, her eyes assessing her. "You did a remarkable job, Anna. We're indebted to you." She knelt, her eyes meeting Anna's. These agents were investigating something big, something that could have very serious ramifications, the poison. It's a rare substance, used in very specific circles. That tells us we're dealing with dangerous people, with resources and connections. The weight of those words fell upon Anna. She was no longer just a homeless girl who saved a few people. She and Scout had stumbled upon something much bigger, something Agent Ramirez described with a seriousness that chilled her blood. The snow continued to fall, but now it seemed to wash away not only the landscape, but also the innocence that remained that night. Scout's nose had unearthed not just a vial, but the beginning of a hunt, and Anna, with her dog by her side, felt that her life would never be the same. The conspiracy, previously a distant shadow, began to take on sharper contours, and the danger it represented seemed to extend far beyond that frigid night. The frigid night continued to envelop the landscape in its white blanket, but the air now vibrated with a different energy. The sirens of patrol cars and ambulances, once a solitary lament in the darkness, had ceased, replaced by a hum of voices and the crunch of tires in the snow as the vehicles departed. Anna, with Scout snuggled at her feet, felt Detective Miller and Special Agent Ramirez guide her to an FBI vehicle, a more robust and silent model than the police cars. The internal heating was a blessing, and the smell of new leather mingled with the subtle aroma of coffee that seemed to permeate everything related to law enforcement. The drive back to the station passed in thoughtful silence. Scout was quiet, his eyes watching the snow pass by the window as if searching for something. Anna, for her part, felt the weight of Agent Ramirez's words. Very specific circles, dangerous people with resources and connections. She, a homeless girl just trying to survive, had stumbled into something that seemed straight out of a movie. Fear began to tighten her chest, but Scout's warm presence beside her was a comfort. Upon their arrival, the police station, which had previously seemed a refuge of warmth and security, now exuded a palpable tension. The duty sergeant, the same man who had initially doubted Anna, gave her a look of respect and a nod. The static of the police radio was more constant, and the officers' voices seemed lower, more serious. Anna and Scout were led to a small room with a metal table and a few chairs. Detective Miller and Agent Ramirez sat opposite her. A steaming cup of hot chocolate was on the table for Anna, and a bowl of water was placed on the floor for Scout, who drank eagerly. "Anna," Agent Ramirez began, her voice softer now but still authoritative, "we need you to tell us everything again, with as much detail as you can." From the moment Scout started acting strangely, Anna took a deep breath, the sweetness of the hot chocolate soothing her throat. She began to recount, from Scout's initial growl, the dog's insistence, the horrific sight of the bound agents, the vial unearthed in the snow. She described the desperate dash through the blizzard, the exhaustion, the relief at seeing the police station. Scout, lying at her feet, let out small whimpers at specific points in the story, as if confirming each word. Miller and Ramirez listened intently, making notes in their pads. Ramirez, in particular, observed Scout with growing curiosity. "He really does have an extraordinary nose, doesn't he?" she murmured more to herself. "The agents are stable, Anna," Miller said, changing the subject for a moment. "They're going to recover thanks to you. The poison you found was crucial for the paramedics to know what to administer." Relief flooded Anna. The image of the dying men had haunted her during the dash. Now, about the poison, Ramirez continued, her eyes fixed on Anna. Our labs have already done a preliminary analysis. It's a synthetic toxin, extremely rare, known as Venenum draconis, or dragon's venom. There's no record of its use on American soil until now. Its manufacture requires advanced chemical knowledge and access to controlled precursors. This isn't the work of a common criminal. The name Venenum draconis sounded sinister, almost mythical. Anna felt a shiver. The agents you saved, Miller interjected, were investigating a high-tech smuggling ring. Military electronic components, state secrets. We suspect there was a traitor within a defense contractor. They were very close to unmasking someone big. Ramirez nodded. And whoever it is, they didn't hesitate to use a brutal and exotic method to silence them. The fact that they were left to die in the cold suggests a message, a demonstration of power. They wanted more than just to kill them. They wanted the death to be slow and agonizing. Silence fell in the room, heavy and cold like the snow outside. Anna realized that the conspiracy was not just a word, but a complex and deadly web. She and Scout had pulled a thread from that web, and now they were entangled in it. "Anna," Ramirez said, her voice taking on a more serious tone, "you and Scout are key witnesses, and unfortunately, by exposing this poison, you've also become potential targets. The people who did this won't want you to talk." Anna's throat went dry. Targets. The word echoed in her mind. She looked at Scout, who watched her with his intelligent eyes, as if understanding the gravity of the situation. The police station, which for a brief moment had seemed a safe harbor, now felt like a cage, and the world outside an even more dangerous place than before. Life on the streets, with its known dangers, seemed almost simple compared to the shadow that Venenum draconis and its creators cast over her and her faithful friend. Scout's nose had not just unearthed a vial, but had exposed a deadly secret that now threatened to engulf them completely. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine, sharper than any icy wind outside. Targets, the word echoed. Taking the sweet taste of hot chocolate from her mouth, she squeezed Scout's paw, and he immediately licked her fingers, a soft, protective growl rumbling in his chest. The dog's eyes were fixed on Agent Ramirez, as if he understood the imminent threat. "We can't leave them unprotected," Ramirez said, her voice losing its softness and taking on a commanding tone. "People who use Venenum draconis don't leave loose ends. If they know you can identify them or that you provided crucial evidence, your lives will be at risk." Detective Miller nodded gravely. "We're not talking about common criminals, Anna. This is a federal-level operation, perhaps international. We need to move them to a safe location immediately." Anna swallowed hard. Safe location? Where? Her entire life had been spent on the streets, in makeshift shelters. The idea of being moved to some unknown place under the protection of strangers was frightening. But the alternative, the image of the poisoned agents, the cruelty of the plan, terrified her. "We have a witness protection program," Ramirez explained, her eyes assessing Anna's hesitation. "It's not permanent, of course, but it's a temporary security measure while we unravel this network. You'll be taken to a discreet FBI facility, a place where no one will find you." Scout let out a low bark, as if agreeing with the urgency of the situation. He stood up, sniffing the air near the door, his posture tense. Anna felt a chill. Scout was never wrong. Was there something more, or was he just sensing her anxiety? He's sensing something?" Anna asked, her voice a whisper. Ramirez and Miller exchanged a look. "Maybe he's just feeling the tension in the air," Miller suggested, but there was a note of uncertainty in his voice. "Or maybe he's feeling the same thing I am," Ramirez countered, her eyes narrowed. "The feeling that time is running out." She stood up. "We can't risk it. We need to go now. A car will be waiting to take you." Anna hesitated once more, looking at Scout. He looked back at her, his eyes full of unwavering intelligence and loyalty. He had guided her this far, had protected her. If he was ready for the next step, so was she. "All right," she said, her voice gaining firmness. "We'll go." The decision was made quickly. Ramirez made a few quick calls, speaking in codes Anna didn't understand. In a few minutes, they were leaving the room, accompanied by Miller. The police station, once a refuge, now seemed exposed, vulnerable. The static of the radios seemed more ominous, and the officers' gazes, previously curious, now carried a new seriousness. Outside, the snow had stopped, but the cold persisted, cutting through the skin. An unmarked black SUV waited on the street, its engine running smoothly. A large man, in a dark jacket and with an impassive face, opened the rear door. "Agent Davies," Ramirez said, introducing the man. "He'll take them to their destination." Anna and Scout got into the vehicle. The interior was spacious and silent, isolating them from the outside world. Scout snuggled into the seat beside Anna, his head on her lap, but his ears were alert, swiveling to catch any sound. Anna looked back, seeing Miller and Ramirez at the station entrance, their figures shrinking as the car drove away. The journey was long and silent. The car glided through the snow-covered streets, passing sleeping houses and ghostly trees. Anna wondered where they were going, what kind of place this discreet facility was. She felt a mixture of fear and a strange excitement. Her life had changed forever in a single night, in a way she never could have imagined. Hours later, under a sky that began to lighten with the first grey tones of dawn, the SUV stopped in front of a tall metal gate, hidden among a dense pine forest. There were no signs, just discreet security cameras and a motion sensor that lit up a red light. The gate opened with an electronic whine, revealing a long gravel path that led to a sturdy, windowless stone building that blended perfectly with the winter landscape. This was no ordinary shelter, it was a fortress. The air around the place was charged with a stillness that was not of peace but of vigilance. Anna felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She and Scout were no longer just survivors. They were crucial pieces in a dangerous game, and the board was set somewhere far beyond the icy streets they knew. The Venenum Draconis had opened a door to a world of secrets and dangers, and now they were inside. The SUV stopped completely within the gate's perimeter, in front of the imposing stone structure. The engine shut off, and the silence that followed was almost deafening, broken only by the faint rustle of the cold wind through the pine trees. Agent Davies, the driver, opened the door for Anna and Scout. The air inside was sterile yet heated, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. A long corridor, lit by fluorescent lights, stretched ahead, with metal doors at regular intervals. There were no windows, just solid walls that conveyed a sense of unshakable security, yet also isolation. The sound of Anna's and Scout's footsteps echoed in the corridor as Davies guided them. Scout, with his ears erect, sniffed the air, his tail low, but showing no signs of fear. He was on high alert, his intelligent eyes fixed on every shadow, every corner. At the end of the corridor, a door opened to reveal Agent Ramirez and Detective Miller, who were waiting for them. Their faces were serious, but there was a flicker of relief in Ramirez's eyes. "Welcome," Ramirez said, her voice a little softer than before. "This is your new home. For now, it's safe. No one knows you're here." Anna felt a knot in her throat. New home. The phrase seemed strange, almost ironic, for someone who had never truly had a home. This was not a home. It was a gilded cage, a cage of security. They were led to a simple but comfortable room. There were 2 single beds, a small wardrobe, and a private bathroom. A bowl of dog food was already on the floor next to one of fresh water. Scout, after a quick sniff, ate ravenously, showing that despite the tension, basic instinct still prevailed. "You'll have everything you need here," Miller explained, pointing to a phone on the wall. "If you need anything, just dial 0. There will always be an agent on duty." "What about the investigation?" Anna asked, her voice a little hoarse. Curiosity and the need to understand what was happening were stronger than fear. Ramirez sighed, sitting on one of the beds. "The investigation is moving quickly thanks to you. The Venenum Draconis is the key. Our labs have confirmed that the toxin is identical to a sample that was stolen a few years ago from a secret government research lab. At the time, we thought the sample had been destroyed. It seems we were deceived." "Stolen," Anna repeated, the gravity of the situation deepening. "Yes, and the theft was an inside job. Only a handful of people had access to that lab. We're talking about a high-ranking traitor, someone with the knowledge and resources to cover their tracks for years." Miller added, his voice grave. "The agents you saved were investigating exactly that, infiltration into our own intelligence and defense contractors." Anna looked at Scout, who was now lying at her feet, watching the agents with his always attentive eyes. He had sniffed out much more than a vial of poison. He had unearthed a conspiracy that corroded the very core of the government. "We still don't know the ultimate goal of these traitors," Ramirez continued, "but the Venenum Draconis isn't just a weapon. It's a symbol. It's a warning. Whoever is behind this wants to show they have the power to strike anyone, anywhere." The silence in the room was heavy. Anna felt the weight of that secret, that danger. She was a small but vital piece in a game much larger than she could comprehend. Her life on the streets, though difficult, was predictable. This new world was full of shadows and invisible threats. "You'll be safe here," Miller assured, as if reading Anna's thoughts. "But safety also means discretion. No one from outside can know you're here. No one can know you exist." "No one can know you exist," echoed in Anna's mind. She and Scout, who had spent their lives being invisible to most people, were now forced into a new form of invisibility, one imposed by their own safety. Ramirez stood up. "Tomorrow morning, we'll begin with a more formal debriefing. We need every detail, every impression, and Scout..." She knelt to pet the dog's head, who accepted the gesture with a soft growl of satisfaction. "He'll be a crucial part of this. His instincts might be our best weapon." The agent said goodbye, leaving Anna and Scout alone in the room. The click of the door closing sounded like a seal, isolating them from the outside world. Anna sat on the bed, Scout jumping up beside her, snuggling against her. The warmth of the dog's body was her only real comfort in that strange, sterile environment. She looked at the windowless walls, at the starless ceiling. Outside, the snow probably still covered the world, but in here, there was no sign of it. There was only the stillness, the forced security, and the shadow of the Venenum Draconis, which hung over them like an invisible dragon. Anna closed her eyes, hugging Scout tightly. They were safe, yes, but at what cost? And for how long? The adventure that began with a growl in the snow was just beginning, and she felt that the path ahead would be more winding and dangerous than any dark street she had ever walked. Dawn brought a cold, pale light to the windowless room, but Anna didn't feel it. The stillness of that place, which should have brought peace, only accentuated the feeling of isolation. The smell of disinfectant hung in the air, a constant reminder of the environment's sterility. Scout, snuggled beside her, breathed softly, but his ears moved, catching the distant sounds of the building, an electrical hum, the creak of a door somewhere far off, the click of shoes in a corridor. He was always alert, even in sleep. Anna got up, her muscles sore from the previous night. Scout's food bowl was empty, and the water bowl was nearly so. She refilled both. The dog, sensing her movement, lifted his head, stretched, and licked her hand. His eyes, deep and intelligent, were the only point of familiarity and comfort in that strange world. It wasn't long before the door opened. Agent Miller entered first, followed by Agent Ramirez. Their faces were serious but not hostile. Ramirez carried a folder and a tablet. "Good morning, Anna," Ramirez said, her voice calm and professional. "Ready to talk?" Anna nodded, feeling a knot in her stomach. Scout, with a low growl, placed himself between her and the agents for an instant, before settling down with a pat from Anna. "He's protecting us," Miller observed, a slight smile on his lips. "Smart." Ramirez sat on the bed opposite Anna's, opening the folder. "We need you to tell us everything again, Anna. Every detail, every sensation. Don't underestimate anything. And Scout will be part of this too." Anna began to recount, her voice initially hesitant, then gaining strength as memories returned. She described the incessant snow, the biting cold, the gnawing hunger. She spoke of Scout's growl, the way he tugged at her pant leg, his eyes fixed on something she couldn't see. "He was different," Anna explained, gesturing. "It wasn't a playful growl, it was urgent, like he knew something was very wrong." Scout, lying at her feet, let out a soft bark, as if confirming her words. "And when you reached the agents?" Miller asked, his voice soft, encouraging her. "They were almost frozen," Anna replied, a shiver running through her body. "Pale, not moving. I thought they were dead. And the smell." She grimaced. A strange chemical smell, yet also faintly sweet, like medicine mixed with something bad. Ramirez scribbled furiously. "The smell! Do you remember anything else about it?" Anna closed her eyes, trying to relive the moment. It was pungent, strong, and Scout was sniffing everything around them. He was very agitated. At that moment, Ramirez took a small glass vial from her folder, identical to the one Anna had found. She placed it on the bedside table. The scent, though faint and contained, escaped. Scout, who had been quiet, abruptly lifted his head. His snout began to sniff the air, the hairs on his neck bristled, and a guttural growl escaped his throat. He lunged towards the vial, his eyes fixed on it. "Scout, no!" Anna held him back, but the dog was tense, trembling slightly. He growled incessantly, a sound of real danger. "He's reacting to the Venenum Draconis," Ramirez observed, a note of surprise in her voice. "Even though it's sealed, he can still smell it." "He reacted like that outside too," Anna said, remembering the scene in the snow. "He growled at the vial, and then, when I picked it up, he kept sniffing my hands the whole time." Miller looked at Scout with new respect. "This is extraordinary. His olfactory sensitivity is far beyond what we imagined. He might be able to detect traces of the toxin where none of our equipment could." Ramirez put the vial back in the folder. Scout slowly calmed down but remained on alert, his eyes fixed on the folder. "Anna, what you brought us," Ramirez continued, her voice more serious, "wasn't just evidence. It was the tip of an iceberg. The Venenum Draconis toxin was created in a government lab, and the project was cancelled and supposedly destroyed years ago. The theft was an inside job, and since then, the traitor has been operating in the shadows, infiltrating defense contractors and intelligence agencies." "Who would do something like that?" Anna asked, feeling the weight of the conspiracy. "Someone with a very big and very dangerous plan," Miller replied, his voice grave. "The agents you saved were close to discovering the link. They were investigating a series of sabotages in high-tech defense projects. We think the Venenum Draconis is the missing piece, the ultimate weapon, or perhaps a threat to ensure their plan isn't interrupted." "But what do they want?" Anna insisted. Ramirez sighed. "Power, control. They want to destabilize the government, perhaps even sell military secrets to foreign powers. The Venenum Draconis is proof that they have the ability to strike anyone from the inside out." Silence returned to the room, now heavy with the gravity of the revelations. Anna looked at Scout, who looked back at her, his eyes communicating a silent understanding. They had saved lives, yes, but they had also become part of something much larger and darker. "We need you, Anna and Scout," Ramirez said, her eyes fixed on hers. "Scout is our only hope of tracking this toxin, of finding where it's being produced or stored. He could be the key to unraveling the traitor before it's too late." Anna felt her heart race. The security of that place was a fragile illusion. She and Scout would be used not as prisoners, but as hunters. The adventure was not just about surviving, but about fighting an invisible enemy, a dragon hiding in the shadows of the government itself. The stillness of the room now seemed like the silence before a storm. The stillness of the room, once a refuge, now seemed filled with a hum of imminent threat. The silence was heavy, not of peace, but of a palpable tension, like the air charged before a blizzard. Anna felt a knot in her stomach. Being a hunter meant danger, a blind hunt against an enemy hiding in the deepest shadows of power. "It's not a choice we make lightly, Anna," Miller said, his voice breaking the silence. "But the truth is, Scout is unique. No technology we have can replicate what he does. He's our best chance." Ramirez nodded, her eyes fixed on Anna. "We'll take you to a secure facility, a specialized training center. There, Scout will be evaluated and will develop protocols to maximize his abilities. You'll be an integral part of this, Anna. Your connection with him is the key." Anna looked at Scout, who watched her with an almost human intelligence. He was her world, her protector, her only friend. Now he was the last hope for many. The responsibility weighed like a rock. "What will we do there?" Anna asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. "We'll teach him to track the toxin in different environments, to ignore distractions, to focus on the specific scent of Venenum draconis," Ramirez explained. "And you, Anna, will learn to interpret his signals, to work with him as a detection team. It will be an intense but crucial process." The room door opened again, and a different agent, a tall, silent man, gestured for them to follow. Anna took Scout's leash. The dog, sensing the change of environment and the smell of new people, let out a low, cautious growl, but followed Anna, his body close to her leg. They walked through endless corridors, the cold concrete floor beneath Anna's feet, the smell of cleaning products mixed with the metallic aroma of electronic equipment. Footsteps echoed, and doors opened and closed with dry clicks. It was a labyrinth of security, an invisible fortress in the heart of the city. Finally, they reached a more spacious area, with several glass rooms and a large open area that looked like an indoor training field. The air here was different, with a faint smell of earth and rubber. Other agents, wearing discreet uniforms, worked with service dogs at different stations. The distant bark of a German shepherd filled the space. "This is Sector Delta," Miller announced. "Here, security is maximum and the work is focused." They entered one of the glass rooms. Inside, there was a table with several vials identical to the one Anna had found, but also other containers holding different substances. A woman in a white lab coat with glasses slipping down her nose smiled at them. "Hello, Anna. I'm Dr. Elena Petrova," she said, her voice soft but authoritative. "And you must be the legendary Scout." Scout sniffed the air, his eyes fixed on the vials on the table. He didn't growl, but his posture was alert, his muscles tense. "What will we do first?" Anna asked, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. "We'll start with a basic test," Dr. Petrova replied, picking up one of the Venenum draconis vials. "We want to see how Scout reacts to different concentrations, to different disguises. We want to understand the extent of his gift." The vial was placed in a special compartment, and a faint chemical mist was released. Scout's snout moved frantically, his eyes narrowed, and a low growl, almost a hum, began to vibrate in his throat. He scratched at the compartment door with his paws, his excitement evident. Incredible, Dr. Petrova murmured, making notes on her tablet. The sensitivity is even greater than reports indicated. He detects the presence of the toxin even at levels almost undetectable by our most advanced sensors. Anna felt a wave of pride for Scout, but also a pang of concern. Each demonstration of his ability placed him deeper into the center of the storm. The following days turned into an exhausting routine. Scout was subjected to a series of exercises, sniffing Venenum draconis hidden in boxes, in clothes, in environments camouflaged with other strong smells. He learned to indicate the presence of the toxin with a nudge of his snout, a specific bark, or a directed growl. Anna was always by his side, learning to read every movement, every nuance in his behavior. She became Scout's voice, the bridge between his instinct and human logic. Miller and Ramirez watched closely, their faces serious, but with a growing flicker of hope. With each of Scout's successes, the possibility of finding the traitor seemed less distant. "He's ready," Ramirez declared a week later, after Scout had precisely located a minuscule sample of the toxin hidden in a complex labyrinth of ventilation ducts. "His accuracy is impeccable." Anna felt her heart pound. The phrase meant that the training phase was over. The hunt was about to begin. The world outside, with its shadows and dangers, was waiting. The forced invisibility was about to end, not so they could be seen, but so they could hunt the dragon hiding. The stillness of preparation was over. The sound of the storm was getting closer. The stillness of preparation was over. The sound of the storm was getting closer, and Ramirez's declaration, "He's ready," echoed in the room, a final verdict before the plunge into the unknown. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine, a mixture of fear and a strange excitement. Miller and Ramirez approached, their faces etched with a seriousness that surpassed that of the training days. Dr. Petrova nodded, a look of pride and concern in her eyes for Scout. "Our first lead takes us to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city," Ramirez began, pointing to a digital map projected on the wall. The image showed a tangle of degraded industrial streets and buildings. "We've received intelligence that a small group of mercenaries, possibly linked to the traitor, used the location as a meeting point. We're not sure if the Venenum draconis is there, but we need to investigate any trace." Miller added, his voice grave, "Security will be minimal, but don't underestimate them. These individuals are dangerous and unpredictable. Our priority is detection, not confrontation. If you encounter any resistance, retreat immediately." Anna adjusted the tactical vest they had given her, a bit large but functional. The rough fabric chafed against her skin. Scout, with his own special harness, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. His brown eyes, fixed on Anna's, communicated a silent commitment. He sensed the change in the air, the tension in the humans around him. The black van glided through the dark streets, its engine barely making a sound, a silent ghost in the night. The snow still fell, but lighter now, covering the ground with a white, silent blanket that muffled the city's sounds. They arrived at a forgotten industrial district, where rusty hangars lined up like giant skeletons under the faint light of street lamps. The frigid air carried the smell of old metal, dampness, and a faint note of pollution. The warehouse was a dark mass against the cloudy sky, its dimensions imposing and menacing. Broken windows looked like empty eyes watching their arrival, and the metal door creaked slightly in the wind, a ghostly lament. A group of armed agents was already positioned, moving with the precision of predators in the darkness. "Scout, sniff," Anna whispered, pointing to the entrance. The dog, without hesitation, moved forward, his snout low, sniffing the ground and the air. His muscles were tense, each step deliberate, his ears swiveling to catch any sound. The interior was a labyrinth of shadows, stacks of empty boxes, and rusty machines that resembled sleeping monsters. The smell of dust and mold was strong, mixed with residual chemical odors, but Scout moved with purpose, ignoring the distractions. His steps were light, almost inaudible, as he snaked between obstacles, Anna close behind. Suddenly, Scout stopped. The hairs on his neck bristled slightly, and an almost inaudible growl, a low hum, escaped his throat. He began to sniff a specific area near a pile of old barrels, his movements more frantic. Anna knelt beside him, feeling the cold of the concrete floor. "What is it, Scout? Did you smell something?" The dog scratched the floor with his front paw, his snout fixed on a spot. It was a subtle scent, almost imperceptible to Anna, but Scout was reacting with the same intensity he had shown at the hospital and during training. Miller and Ramirez approached, their flashlights cutting through the darkness and revealing dust dancing in the air. "He found something," Miller murmured, his voice tense. Scout then began to dig with his front paws in the hard, dirty earth, revealing something. It wasn't the vial, but a small, dark, stained cloth with a faint, distinct smell that Anna recognized with a chill. "It's the smell," Anna said, her voice low, but firm. "The smell of Venenum draconis. It's faint, but he sensed it." Ramirez carefully picked up the cloth with gloves, examining it under his flashlight. "Traces. This confirms they were here, and that the Venenum draconis was with them." Miller examined the cloth. "It looks like it was used to wipe something. There's not much, but it's enough to confirm the toxin's presence. Scout, you're unbelievable." Scout, satisfied with his discovery, lifted his head, sniffing the air again with a precise movement of his snout, as if looking for the next clue, the trail that extended beyond that warehouse. "He's trying to pick up the trail," Anna observed, pointing in the direction Scout indicated. "The scent is going somewhere." Ramirez turned to Miller, his eyes shining with new urgency. "We need to follow this. The traitor isn't just storing the toxin, he's moving it." Miller nodded, his hand on the radio. "We'll assemble a tracking team. Scout will be the spearhead. This is just the first stage." The mission at the warehouse had been an initial success, but the feeling of relief was quickly replaced by a growing urgency. The dragon was moving, and Anna and Scout were the only ones who could sense its invisible trail. The hunt had truly begun, and with each step, the danger seemed to intensify, an icy whisper in the wind that promised more challenges. The whisper of danger in the wind was no longer just a promise, it was a chilling certainty that coiled around them. Miller, radio in hand, transmitted the coordinates and instructions with contained urgency. "Tracking team in position. Scout is the spearhead. Anna, keep him focused. Ramirez, security." The black van accelerated again, cutting through the silence of the snowy night. With each mile, the scenery changed, moving from the industrial district to a more residential yet desolate area. Abandoned houses and dark streets followed one another, the white blanket of snow covering every imperfection, every secret. The smell of old metal and dampness gave way to a more subtle aroma of earth and, at times, a faint odor of wood smoke coming from some distant chimney. Scout was in the back seat of the van, his snout agitated, sniffing the air that seeped through the cracks. His eyes gleamed in the dark, reflecting the city lights rushing past. He didn't bark, but a low, continuous hum vibrated in his throat, a sign that the trail was hot. Anna, sitting beside him, kept her hand on his thick fur, feeling the tension in his muscles. She had become an extension of the dog, reading every small movement, every breath. "He's following something," Anna murmured, more to herself than to the agents. "The scent is intensifying." Ramirez in the passenger seat nodded. "Our satellites detected a small vehicle leaving the warehouse area about an hour before we arrived. It seems we're on the right track." The van stopped abruptly on a narrow street, lined with leafless trees and low fences. The engine was turned off, and silence settled. broken only by the faint rustle of falling snow and the distant sound of a siren. "On foot from here," Miller ordered, opening the van door with a soft click. The frigid air hit Anna's face, and she pulled up the hood of her vest. Scout leaped out, his feet barely sinking into the fresh snow. He immediately lowered his snout, sniffing the ground with renewed intensity. His steps were quick and determined, leading them through the houses, across backyards and dark alleys. The smell of Venenum draconis, previously faint on the cloth, now seemed more present, mixed with other odors Anna couldn't identify. They approached an old wooden house with dark windows and a crumbling porch. A sharp creak came from the front door, moved by the wind. Snow had accumulated on the porch, but an area was visibly disturbed, with footprints and what appeared to be a tire track. Scout stopped on the porch, his hairs bristled, and a more audible growl escaped his throat. He didn't scratch the ground, but pushed the half-open door with his snout, revealing a dark, dusty interior. The smell was unmistakable now, dense and pungent. "He's here," Anna whispered, feeling a chill run down her spine. "The smell is very strong." Miller and Ramirez drew their weapons, moving cautiously. "Tactical entry," Miller said into his communicator, and other agents positioned themselves around the house. A dry crack of old wood snapped under Scout's paw as he entered, his body tense. Anna followed him closely, Ramirez's flashlight illuminating the way. The house was empty, but not abandoned. There were signs of recent use, a half-empty coffee cup on the kitchen table, breadcrumbs on the floor, and what looked like a crumpled map on top of a box. Scout ignored all of it. He went straight to the living room, where an extinguished fireplace dominated the wall, his eyes fixed on a spot on the floor, near the fireplace. He began to scratch with his paws, not with the frenzy from before, but with surgical precision. Under a dusty, loose rug, Scout revealed a wooden floorboard that looked different from the others. Ramirez knelt and, with a special tool, managed to lift the board. A secret compartment was exposed. Inside, there was no poison, but a small metal briefcase. "A communication briefcase," Ramirez murmured, examining the object. "Encrypted and a small tracking device." He looked at Miller. They were communicating from here, and they were tracking something or someone. Scout sniffed the briefcase, then lifted his head, his eyes fixed in a specific direction, towards the window overlooking the back of the house. A low, continuous growl vibrated in his throat, a sound of warning Anna had never heard before. It wasn't just the smell of Venenum draconis, it was something more, a smell of imminent danger. Suddenly, a dry crack came from outside, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Dense, greenish smoke began to pour through the broken window, filling the room with a suffocating chemical smell. "Gas!" Miller shouted, pulling Anna back. "Everyone out! Now!" Scout, however, did not retreat. His sharp bark echoed through the house, a sound of pure desperation and warning. He didn't back away. Instead, he strained at his leash, trying to push into the greenish cloud, his eyes fixed on the broken window. It wasn't just the gas that worried him. There was something more, a scent Anna couldn't smell, but which Scout recognized as an even greater threat. The dog's instinct was clear. The real danger was not in the smoke, but beyond it. The other agents coughed and retreated, some already reaching for gas masks. Ramirez, with impressive agility, pulled a scarf from his pocket and tied it over Anna's face, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come on, Anna, we can't stay here." But Scout wouldn't yield. He scratched at the floor, his muscles tense, the low, continuous growl in his throat turning into an urgent clamor. He wasn't trying to escape, he was trying to follow. Anna felt a chill. Scout had never behaved that way, not even in the face of the most potent poison. There was a person or something he was trying to reach. "He's not afraid of the gas," Anna said, her voice muffled by the scarf. He's sensing someone. The traitor must be out there near the window. Miller, who had moved back slightly to give orders to the other agents regarding the perimeter, heard Anna's words and saw Scout. He hesitated for a second, weighing the dog's instinct against the imminent danger of the gas. The smoke was already spreading, and visibility was dropping drastically. An agent coughed violently, falling to his knees. "We can't risk it," Ramirez shouted, pulling Anna more forcefully. "The gas could be lethal." But Scout, with a sudden tug on his leash, managed to break free from Anna's hand. He darted towards the broken window, tearing through the greenish cloud with impressive speed. His body seemed almost immune to the immediate effects of the gas, or perhaps his urgency was so great that it overcame any discomfort. "Scout!" Anna cried, her voice full of desperation and concern. She tried to follow him, but Miller held her firmly. "No, Anna, it's too dangerous." Outside, however, a dry sound of rapid footsteps in the fresh snow was heard, followed by a metallic clang, like a car door closing. An engine rumbled in the distance, and the sound quickly faded away. Scout, who had leaped through the window, let out a frustrated, sharp bark, a lament for a lost hunt. He ran back to the window, his eyes fixed in the direction of the fading sound. The smoke in the house began to dissipate slowly, but the smell lingered, irritating throats and eyes. Miller and Ramirez ran to the window, observing the dark, snow-covered street. There was nothing, just emptiness. "He escaped," Miller murmured, frustration evident in his voice. The gas was a perfect distraction. Scout was panting but unharmed. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of anger and determination. He sniffed the air again, his ears swiveling. The smell of Venenum draconis was still there, faint but present, mixed with the residual aroma of the gas and the scent of the person who had escaped. Anna knelt beside him, stroking his fur. "Are you okay, buddy?" Scout responded with a faint hum, nudging his snout into her hand. He then lifted his head, pointing to the ground just below the window, where the snow had been disturbed by footsteps and the fall of the grenade. Ramirez approached, illuminating the spot with his flashlight. There, almost imperceptible, was a small, shiny object, partially buried in the snow. It was a small metal insignia, engraved with a stylized eye within a pyramid. "That's not FBI," Miller said, picking up the insignia with gloves. "It's the symbol of a mercenary group we investigated a few years ago, the Observers. They're known for their discretion and for working for the highest bidder." Anna looked at the insignia, then at Scout. The dog, in turn, was sniffing the air again. But this time, his attention turned to the inside of the house, to the secret compartment where the briefcase had been found. He let out a low growl, almost a warning. "What is it, Scout?" Anna asked, sensing the change in his behavior. Scout scratched the floor near the compartment, then turned and sniffed the communication briefcase that Ramirez still held. He wasn't interested in the tracking device, but in something inside the briefcase, something Anna couldn't see. "He's sniffing the briefcase again," Ramirez observed, confused. "But we already checked it." Scout, with a quick and precise movement, nudged the briefcase clasp, with his snout opening it. His eyes fixed on an internal compartment that had gone unnoticed. There, hidden beneath the protective foam, was a small memory chip, barely larger than a fingernail. "A data chip," Miller said, picking it up carefully. This is what he was really looking for. They weren't just communicating, they were storing information. The blizzard outside seemed to intensify, the wind howling against the windows, a constant reminder of the isolation of that place. The FBI agents moved with more urgency, knowing that every minute was crucial. The house, previously seen as a temporary hideout, now revealed itself as a nest of spies, a strategic point in the web of conspiracy. Back in the car, with Scout snuggled in the back seat beside Anna, Miller made a series of urgent calls. "We need a team of cryptography and forensic analysis specialists immediately," he instructed. They were monitoring our movements. Everything we said may have been compromised. Yaina felt the warmth of Scout's body against hers, a comfort amidst the growing anxiety. The dog, however, was restless. His ears moved, catching sounds she couldn't hear. He sniffed the air again, a low, continuous growl vibrating in his chest. It wasn't the smell of Venenum draconis this time, but something more subtle, something that seemed to come from afar, carried by the icy wind. "He's sensing something else," Anna whispered to Miller, who was at the wheel. "It's not the poison, it's different." Miller looked in the rearview mirror, seeing Scout with his eyes fixed on the dark, snowy landscape rushing past. "What, Anna? What is he sensing?" "I don't know," she replied, feeling a chill run down her spine. "But it's like the danger is still out there watching us, like the dragon is just waiting for the right moment to strike again." The car glided down the snow-covered road, leaving the gloomy house behind. The 2 memory chips and the observer's insignia were the new pieces of the puzzle, but the feeling that they were being hunted and not just hunting was palpable. With each mile they moved away from the house, the certainty that the enemy had deepened into the shadows grew stronger, and the search for the traitor and his network of mercenaries turned into a race against time, with the threat of an imminent attack hanging in the air. The car cut through the darkness of the night, its wheels hissing on the packed snow as it pulled away from the gloomy house. Inside, the silence was heavy, punctuated only by the purring engine and the occasional crackle of Miller's radio, which he kept at a low volume, waiting for news. Anna felt Scout's warm body nestled beside her, but the dog was far from relaxed. His muscles were tense, his ears swiveling incessantly, catching invisible echoes in the icy wind that whipped against the vehicle. "He's still sensing something," Anna repeated, her voice almost a whisper, but charged with an urgency that Miller understood. "It's not the poison, it's like we're being followed." Miller gripped the steering wheel, his eyes fixed on the dark road. The feeling of being under surveillance was a heavy burden. "Scout has a nose for danger that goes beyond our understanding," he admitted. "If he's restless, we have to take it seriously." Ramirez, in the passenger seat, typed rapidly on a tablet, sending the details of the chips and the insignia to base. "The forensic team is already on standby," he informed, without taking his eyes off the screen. "They'll prioritize the analysis. The observers are masters of encryption, but perhaps these chips contain a flaw, something that will lead us to the mastermind." A loud crackle on the radio broke the tense silence. A female voice, urgent and distorted, burst through. "Agent Miller, Agent Ramirez, we have a problem. Preliminary data from the chips is alarming. It appears they were not only monitoring our communications, but also tracking our designated vehicles, including yours. There's a second signal, an unidentified vehicle that has maintained a constant distance from you since you left the house." The air in the car seemed to freeze. Scout's growl intensified, a deep, continuous sound that vibrated in his chest. He jumped to the back seat, pressing his snout against the window, his eyes gleaming in the darkness, fixed on a point behind them. "Confirmed," Miller said, his voice tense. "Scout already knew. They're following us." He checked the rearview mirror, but the blizzard and darkness made it impossible to distinguish anything. "Ramirez, try to identify the vehicle. Watch for any suspicious movement." Suddenly, a strong, blinding flash exploded in the rearview mirror, followed by a sharp screech of tires skidding on the snow. A dark vehicle, which seemed to have come out of nowhere, accelerated, approaching dangerously. "It's a black SUV, no visible license plates," Ramirez shouted, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're gaining ground." Miller floored the accelerator, the car skidding slightly before gaining speed. The chase had begun. The enemy SUV's engine roared behind them, a menacing sound that echoed in the night. Scout barked furiously, a sound of pure defiance as Anna held him, feeling adrenaline course through her veins. The SUV drew even closer, its high beams blinding them. A metallic clang of something hitting the FBI car body made everyone flinch. "Gunfire!" Ramirez exclaimed. "They're shooting at the tires!" Miller maneuvered the car skillfully, dodging a shot that shattered the rear window, sending shards of ice and glass inside. Scout, despite the scare, did not retreat. His barks became more frantic, and he pushed his head out of the broken window, sniffing the frigid air, as if trying to identify the assailant by scent, even at high speed. "They want the chips," Miller growled, determination hardening his face. "They can't let that information reach base." Anna, hugging Scout, felt the icy wind on her face, but her eyes were fixed on the dog. He was sniffing something once again, not just the enemy, but a different scent, coming from the dense forest that bordered the road. A subtle, almost imperceptible scent that mingled with the smell of gunpowder and snow. Scout let out a sharp yelp, and then, with an unexpected movement, he leapt from the moving car, disappearing into the darkness of the forest. "Scout!" Anna cried, her heart clenching in her chest. "No!" Miller braked sharply, the car skidding in the snow. The enemy SUV sped past them, but did not stop to pursue them, continuing at full speed down the road. It seemed their objective was not to eliminate, but to retrieve something, or perhaps to lure them into a trap. "What's he doing?" Ramirez asked, confused. "Is he chasing them?" Anna looked at the dark forest, the place where Scout had disappeared. She knew Scout wasn't foolish. He wouldn't leap to his death. There was a purpose in his actions, an instinct that always guided her to the truth, to hidden danger. "He's not chasing," Anna said, her voice firm despite her fear. "He's showing us the way. He sensed something in the forest, something they didn't want us to find." The chase had been a distraction, a maneuver to divert their attention. The true objective of the observers and the traitor was hidden in the darkness of those trees, waiting to be revealed by Scout's unerring nose. They had to follow. The race against time had turned into a leap into the unknown. Guided only by the courage of a girl and the supernatural instinct of her faithful dog, the FBI car skidded in the snow, the screech of tires almost muffled by the wind's howl. Miller and Ramirez looked back into the darkness that swallowed Scout, a mixture of shock and disorientation on their faces. "Anna, what did he do?" Ramirez asked, his voice choked. Anna was already opening the car door, ignoring the biting cold that rushed into the interior. "He's showing us the way," she cried, adrenaline pulsing through her veins. "He sensed something there. They didn't want us to find it." Miller hesitated for a second, reason battling instinct. But he had seen what Scout was capable of. The girl's courage and the dog's intelligence had saved lives and uncovered secrets. "Ramirez, grab the emergency kit and flashlights. Let's go." The blizzard was merciless. With each step, the soft snow sank to their knees, making progress slow and exhausting. The trees, covered in a thick white layer, looked like ghosts in the darkness, their branches cracking under the weight of the ice and the assault of the wind. Anna called for Scout, her voice almost lost in the storm. Then a distant bark echoed, a muffled but unmistakable sound. Scout was there, waiting. They followed the sound, their flashlights cutting through the darkness in flickering beams. With each meter, the scent Scout had detected in the car intensified for Anna. A subtle, almost electrical odor, mixed with something earthy and cold. It wasn't the poison, it was something more artificial. Scout stood at the foot of a snow-covered rock formation, his eyes gleaming in Anna's flashlight beam. He furiously scratched the snow on the ground, a low growl vibrating in his chest. "Here!" Anna exclaimed, pointing. Miller and Ramirez approached. The rock looked natural, but Scout was focused on a specific point at its base. Ramirez, with his experience, began to remove the snow with his hands and a small folding shovel. Beneath the white layer, he found a camouflaged metallic surface, almost invisible. It was a door. A camouflaged entrance, Ramirez murmured, impressed. Well hidden. Scout, you're unbelievable. The door, made of heavy metal, had no visible handle. Miller examined it, running his hands over the icy surface. Scout barked again, nudging his snout against a small crevice on the side. Miller followed the dog's instinct, pressing a spot. With a soft hiss of compressed air, the door opened inward, revealing a steep staircase descending into darkness. Stuffy, cold air rose from the opening, laden with the same metallic and electrical smell Scout had detected. Miller lit a more powerful flashlight and descended first, with Ramirez and Anna close behind. Scout, with his agility, had already disappeared into the darkness. The staircase led to a small underground bunker. The walls were of raw concrete, and the temperature was glacial. In the center of the room, a metal table housed a series of monitors and communication equipment, all turned off, but with indicator lights blinking intermittently. Like dormant electronic hearts, thick cables snaked across the floor, connecting the devices to a hidden power source. Scout was sniffing one of the monitors frantically, a deep growl in his throat. He scratched the screen with his paw. "Looks like they left in a hurry," Miller observed, examining the equipment. "Maybe the SUV was here to deactivate everything or take something important." Ramirez began to examine the consoles. These are state-of-the-art surveillance equipment, and it looks like they were monitoring not only communications, but also satellite data streams. This isn't just a communication base, it's an intelligence center. Anna approached Scout, who was now barking at a small compartment on the side of one of the monitors. Miller opened it carefully. Inside, there was no chip, but a small hard drive, still warm to the touch, as if it had been removed moments before. "They took the main one," Miller said, frustrated. "The SUV wasn't a distraction. It was a recovery team. They knew we were coming." Ramirez, however, pointed to a smaller monitor, almost hidden behind the others. "Wait," he said, his eyes fixed on the screen. "This one is still active. It seems to be a secondary monitor, perhaps forgotten in the rush." The screen, in a phosphorescent green hue, displayed a series of coordinates and a vibrant red countdown. 00, 09, 47, 03. Below, an encrypted message scrolled rapidly, but a single phrase stood out, repeated several times like a mantra of destruction. "Activate Dragon Protocol. Target Willow Creek Power Plant." The air in the bunker froze. Scout let out a sharp yelp, a sound of alert that reverberated in the small space. The Dragon Protocol was not just an espionage conspiracy. It was an imminent attack, and time was running out. The SUV wasn't just recovering data, it was buying time for the real blow to be delivered. The race against time had turned into a desperate struggle to prevent a catastrophe. The air in the bunker, already cold, became glacial with the revelation. Scout's sharp yelp reverberated in the small space, a primal alert sound that made the hairs on Anna's neck stand on end. Her eyes were fixed on the phosphorescent green screen, where the countdown pulsed in vibrant red. 00, 09, 47, 03. 9 minutes, 47 seconds. That was all they had. 9 minutes? Miller growled, his voice rough, disbelief and fury battling on his face. "That's insane. What the hell is the Dragon Protocol?" Ramirez, wide-eyed, was already typing frantically on the active monitor's keyboard, trying to access any additional information. "There are no known records with that name in any counter-terrorism database I know of," he said, his fingers flying. "And Willow Creek Power Plant. It's one of the largest plants in the region. It supplies power to millions." Anna hugged Scout tightly, feeling the tremor in her body. The dog, however, wasn't trembling with fear. He was on high alert, his muscles tense, his snout pointed at the screen. A low, continuous growl in his throat, as if challenging the digital threat itself. "They didn't want us to find this," Anna murmured, her voice choked but firm. "The chase, the SUV, it was all to delay us, to ensure we didn't arrive in time." Miller nodded, his mind working at maximum speed. "They took the main hard drive to prevent us from knowing the plan, but they forgot this secondary screen, a fatal error." He pulled out his radio, but static filled the air. "No signal down here. We're isolated." Ramirez's face contorted in frustration. "I can't deactivate the protocol from here. It seems to be a remote command, activated by an external trigger. The only way is at the source or at the plant itself." The countdown continued, merciless. Drew 0, 08, 59, 12. Every second was a blow to the chest. "We need to get to the plant," Miller declared, determination hardening his features. "Ramirez, can you give us the fastest route to Willow Creek?" Ramirez was already working on it, opening digital maps on the monitor. "It's about 30 kilometers from here east with this blizzard. It's going to be tough. And what if the SUV is waiting?" Scout let out a strong bark, drawing everyone's attention to the bunker door. He scratched at the metal, eager to get out, as if he knew that time was an enemy to be overcome outside. "He's right," Anna said, looking at Scout. "We can't waste any more time. We have to go." Miller looked at Anna, then at Ramirez. "We have to alert the authorities. Ramirez, try to find a higher point with a signal as soon as we get out. I'll drive. Anna, stay with Scout. He's our compass." The climb up the steep stairs was done in record time. The wind howled outside with renewed fury, and snow whipped at their faces. The FBI car, left on the road, was partially covered by a new layer of white. Miller started the engine, which roared to life. Ramirez, already with the radio in hand, desperately tried to find a signal. Scout, in the back seat, whimpered and pointed his snout east towards the plant, his eyes gleaming with an urgency that needed no words. "Weak signal!" Ramirez shouted, his voice almost inaudible over the wind's roar. "I got a connection to base, but it's cutting out." He began to transmit the message, words coming out in distorted fragments. "Dragon Protocol, Willow Creek, 9 minutes." Miller floored the accelerator. The car skidded, but he controlled it masterfully, making it cut through the soft snow on the road. The dashboard lights trembled slightly, reflecting the tension inside the vehicle. With each turn, the blizzard seemed to intensify, turning the landscape into a white blur. "They're setting a trap, Miller," Ramirez exclaimed after another attempt at communication. "Base confirmed reports of a convoy of unidentified vehicles moving towards the plant. They're protecting the target, or perhaps activating the protocol on sight." Anna's heart pounded erratically. She squeezed Scout, who was now barking incessantly, a hoarse, desperate sound. He wasn't just alerting them to the threat, but seemed to be directing Miller, indicating the best path to follow, avoiding invisible obstacles in the blizzard. The countdown in Anna's mind was deafening. 0, 03, 15, 0. 3 minutes. Suddenly the lights of the Willow Creek power plant appeared ahead, faint and distorted by the blizzard, but unmistakable. A massive structure of metal and concrete, a source of life for the region, now a target of destruction. However, something was wrong. The plant's lights began to flicker intermittently, like a failing heart. A low, powerful hum began to fill the air, vibrating through the car's chassis. "They've already started!" Ramirez shouted, pointing at the plant. "The hum! It's a power surge. The Dragon Protocol is activating." Miller accelerated even more, the car flying down the road. As they approached, Anna could see dark figures moving near the plant gates, vehicles parked, and the glow of flashlights. The observers' convoy was there, protecting the operation. "We won't get through the gates," Miller growled, the steering wheel firm in his hands. "They're armed and waiting." Scout, with a piercing bark, leaped again to the broken window, but this time not to escape. He pointed his snout towards a side fence of the plant, a less guarded spot, where the blizzard had accumulated a large snowdrift. It was a shortcut, a secret passage that only his nose could detect. "There!" Anna shouted, pointing. "Scout found a way." Miller didn't hesitate. He turned the steering wheel sharply, the car skidding in a controlled spin in the snow, and launched it towards the fence. The creaking metal of the fence bent and gave way on impact, opening a gap. The FBI car burst into the plant complex, ignoring the alarms that began to blare and the surprise shouts of the observers. The countdown in her mind was now a scream. 0000 58 0. Less than a minute. They were inside. The plant pulsed with uncontrolled energy, the lights flickering at a frantic pace, the hum growing into a deafening roar. The Dragon Protocol was about to be completed. The last and most desperate race to save millions of lives was about to begin, guided by the courage of a girl, the determination of two agents, and the unerring nose of a stray who had become the night's greatest hero.